Hi guys, welcome back to Read Instead. I'm Jake. Glad to have you here today. Today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite series of all time, and that is the Dark Tower series by Stephen King. This series was written between 1982 and 2003, and it involves 7 books. And as you can see, I have 6 of them, all first editions, hardcover. I wouldn't have got all these first editions hardcover novels if I wasn't really into this series. So let me just, I'm sort of proud of this. So before we go any further with the series review, let me just give you some little show and tell here. This is the drawing of the 3, the second book in the series. This is the 3rd book in the series called The Wastelands. This is the 4th book in the series and my personal favorite book in the series, Wizard and Glass. 5th book in the series, The Wolves of the Kala. Number 6, The Song of Susanna. And last but not least, the 7th book in the series, The Dark Tower. Nice little illustration on the front there, isn't it? They don't do it like that anymore, I don't think. I'm going to put my favorite book in the series, instead of stacking those all up again, I'm going to put my favorite book in the series on display here. Let me tell you a little bit about this. First of all, I think the only fantasy series that I read before this series was, actually not a series, I had read The Hobbit. And then I read this, and that I owe a lot of how I pick and choose books today, which ones to read, due to this series. As I believe I mentioned in the last video that I made, I'm not really married to one particular genre within fiction. I read just about everything. Again, within fiction, I don't really read any nonfiction. But a lot of books that I read, a lot of series that I read, are within the genre of fantasy. I love fantasy. For me, it's the most. It's escapism. I escape the furthest away from my mind when I read fantasy. And that's kind of the goal, for me at least, when I read, is I want to go to a different world. That's not to say that my life sucks or anything. It's I just, that's what I enjoy doing. And so I read a lot of fantasy today, and I owe that to this series right here, the Dark Tower series by Stephen King. But they were written between 1982 and 2003. I'll give you from my perspective, right? So I picked up the first book in the series, which is called The Gunslinger, and after that I read all 7 books in a row. By the way, I don't recommend doing that. I don't really ever recommend reading 7 books in a series in a row. That's just you tend to get burned out a little bit, and perhaps I sort of got burned out by the last book in this series, the Dark Tower. I want to say that's obviously a very different reading experience than someone who's like, maybe in their 60s now, and they've been a Stephen King fan since he first started writing in the mid-70s, and they actually they were waiting for each one of these installments to come out all the way between 1982 and 2003. That's a very different reading experience. But nonetheless, I'll give you a quick spoiler-free synopsis of what this series is and what it's about. Okay, this series is about getting to the Dark Tower. All right, end the video. No, I'm just joking. That's what it's about. It's about a journey to the Dark Tower, and it took 7 books to get there. So as you can imagine, there's quite a bit of a journey along the way. Who's trying to get to the Dark Tower? Well, there's a man by the name of Roland Deschaines. Roland Deschaines is a gunslinger. And by the way, this is in another realm. This isn't planet Earth. Places and geographical locations from planet Earth eventually start to make their way into the series, but where Roland is from is not planet Earth. Roland Deschaines is a gunslinger. A gunslinger is it's a type of people. It's almost like it's a race of people, but it's not a race. I'm just to convey how strong of a identity they have. That would be the best way for me to describe it to you. But Roland Deschaines is a gunslinger, and the gunslinger people are a dying people, and there's barely any left in existence right when you get into the first book, The Gunslinger. Roland Deschaines is on a journey to the Dark Tower. You don't actually figure out why he's going to the Dark Tower till quite a ways into the series. Actually, this book right here is when you figure that part out. But that's what it is. Along the way, he gets a posse. He brings a few people, 3 people really, along with him, and they become part of this journey with him towards the Dark Tower. Now, these 3 characters couldn't be the only thing that unites them or makes them similar is that they speak English, and I suppose they're all from the United States. But aside from that, there's no real similarities between them, and that makes it pretty cool. And it creates obviously a lot of tension, and it creates a lot of the posse itself begins to have its own character. It's not just Roland and these 3 comrades that are on the journey with him. It's the posse itself, and then they all sort of start to have their own responsibilities, and then they certainly all have, including Roland. By the way, he's a very flawed character. They're all the characters within the posse are flawed in many ways, and as the series progresses, they're almost new people. They're different people at the end. A tremendous amount of character growth, which is great. Wizard and Glass. So, as I said, very different reading experience from someone who waited for the books to come out, each one of them to come out, and then read them as they came out, as opposed to me. I read them all back to back. I'll just tell you, and this isn't giving anything away, novel, this 4th installment in the series, 95% of this book is just a flashback. They don't progress towards the Dark Tower anymore on a geographical level. The first few pages of the book, Roland sits down with his posse around a campfire and basically says, "Now it's time for me to tell you my story and what is driving me towards the Dark Tower." And then boom, it goes back into this flashback, and then it doesn't come out till just a few pages left in the book. And that flashback is a story within itself. It's almost like a standalone book. If you just took away the first 5% and the last 5% of this book, it would just seem like a standalone sort of fantasy novel. It's so good. It's and the great part about it too is that it gives you so much more depth and background to Roland. It puts him in. It's when he's a teenager. It goes back to when he's a teenager, and you see him in a completely different light. And then at the end of the story, you figure out he's just so much more well-rounded as a character, and you understand why he has some of the motivations. He has some of the sorrow and heartbreak that he carries with him. He's a very sort of broken man. He's tough. He's tough as nails, but he's broken, and you find that out in this novel right here. Anyway, I don't want to give too much. I really don't want to give too much away because I love this series so much, and I would encourage everybody to get into it, to give it a try. I'll give you a little. This one right here, The Wastelands. I don't know if you guys can relate to this, but if you've ever had a reading experience where you're so engrossed and encapsulated in the book, nothing else exists outside of the pages. It's as though a movie is playing right in front of your eyes as you're reading the book. I had that experience with this book right here, the third installment in the series, The Wastelands. And again, it's not even my favorite book in the series, so this is telling you how good this is. I remember it was 3 o'clock in the morning, and I had to work the next day too. 3 o'clock in the morning, and I was reading the last few pages of this book. I needed to finish it. I had to. The last 10% of this book, the posse arrives upon a town and gets themselves into trouble. And it was just really good. It was just really good. You're on the edge of your seat the whole time. So I wanted to share this with you today. Fantasy, I think it's a very rewarding genre to get into. If you're looking to escape, if you're looking to go to different worlds and not be not have to follow the rules of Earth, and what the rules of that we see and survey around us, then I would recommend getting into fantasy. And if you're anything like me, then you get into this one and you'll be off and going. You'll just want to keep reading more and more fantasy. I wanted to just end this video by making one more quick note. This channel exists to encourage adults and young. It doesn't have to be adults, but anybody who wants to put down bad habits and pick up good ones, like reading. But I can say from my perspective, I started getting into my reading journey in my 30s. And one of the great benefits of that is most of the stuff that I read, I've already read and researched, and I know that they're very highly reviewed books. I have the luxury of doing that. I haven't been reading on a daily basis since I was 6 years old. So I'm very targeted when I read a book, and that's why what is it? It's July now. There's probably been one book this entire year so far in 2024 that just wasn't good. And I can't even think of what one that is right now. But I just know that this entire year has been a very rewarding and entertaining reading year, and that's because I have the luxury of already reading everything that everybody in the world already told me was really good. So that's some food for thought, something to think about if you're a little bit older and you want to get into reading, pick up the great hobby of reading. So that's all I'll say about this. The Dark Tower by Stephen King. I'm sure you can find it at any secondhand used bookstore. If not, it's certainly on the shelf at your local Barnes & Noble. And I would highly encourage you to get into it. The Dark Tower by Stephen King.